Hi there. Welcome back to British Accent Podcast. I'm Emily.
And I'm Nick. We're glad you've joined us again. Today's episode is called Happiness Isn't Loud, Sometimes It's Just Breathing Without Worry.
I think we grow up believing happiness is meant to be this big, loud, over-the-top feeling, don't we? Like fireworks, parties, shouting from rooftops.
Yeah, like it has to be constant excitement, always something to post about. But real happiness, true contentment, it's often much quieter than that.
It really is. Sometimes it's just that one moment where you're not overthinking. You're not anxious about the future or replaying the past. You're just breathing. And it doesn't hurt.
Exactly. No pressure to perform, no need to prove anything. Just you, in a quiet room maybe, cup of tea nearby, feeling calm. That's happiness too, even if no one else sees it.
It's a kind of peace that doesn't need attention. It's not flashy. You won't find it in a highlight reel. But it matters. Because that's the feeling you come back to when the noise fades.
Sometimes it's just walking home slowly without your phone in your hand. Or lying in bed and realizing, hey, my chest doesn't feel heavy tonight. I can actually breathe easy. That's huge.
It's funny how we often chase loud happiness, thinking we need something bigger, better, louder, when the quiet kind is already there, waiting for us to slow down enough to notice it.
We're so used to chasing moments that look happy, that we forget to recognize the ones that feel happy. Like a quiet Sunday morning. Or when you're laughing with someone who gets you. Or even when you're just alone, and not lonely.
Yeah. Those moments don't need to be documented or shared. They just need to be felt. And sometimes, happiness is just the absence of dread.
You know, there have been times when I thought I wasn't happy just because I wasn't buzzing with energy or smiling non-stop. But looking back, those were the days I was actually most at peace.
Same here. I used to associate happiness with doing things, achieving, ticking boxes, being productive. But now, I think real happiness is when you can just sit with yourself and not feel restless.
Yeah, when your mind isn't racing to fix something or prove something. Just stillness. It doesn't mean everything's perfect. It just means you're not fighting the moment you're in.
And that's something we don't talk about enough. That being okay, genuinely okay, might not come with a big smile or an exciting story. It might just look like being able to eat your breakfast in peace.
Or walking through the park without needing to call someone or scroll through anything. Just being. Just breathing. I think that kind of happiness is really underrated.
It's almost like we've been taught to doubt it. Like, this can't be happiness, it's too quiet. But maybe that's exactly what makes it so precious. It's not shouting for attention. It's just there.
It's gentle. And I think when you've been through a lot, stress, grief, burnout, that kind of gentleness starts to mean more than any big celebration ever could.
Absolutely. Happiness after pain often looks like the moment you realize you're not in pain anymore. Not in the way you were. And even if nothing's grand or exciting, you feel lighter.
And sometimes that's all you need to feel human again. A bit of space to breathe without panic. A bit of quiet in your thoughts. A moment of not needing to change anything.
It's in those quiet pauses where you realize you're healing. You're actually doing okay, even if the world hasn't noticed. Even if you haven't posted about it.
And maybe the reason we overlook this kind of happiness is because it doesn't demand anything from us. It doesn't need a big reaction or a photo or a plan. It just needs us to be present.
Yeah. It doesn't ask for performance. You don't have to fake a smile or say you're doing great when you're not. You just need to let yourself be, however you are in that moment.
Sometimes I think that's the hardest part. Letting yourself feel content when nothing major is happening. No big goals reached. No new chapters. Just today.
But that's where life happens, right? In the quiet in-between. The part where you're not waiting for the next high, or running from a low. You're just in it. Fully. Calmly.
It's interesting how many people associate stillness with laziness. Or quiet with boredom. When actually, those moments are often where you meet yourself most honestly.
I love that, meeting yourself honestly. No filters. No outside noise. Just sitting with your thoughts and realizing, I don't feel lost today. I don't feel like I'm drowning. I feel okay.
And even if you don't feel amazing, that okay is something to celebrate. That kind of soft peace, that's the kind of happiness we don't shout about, but we carry with us.
It's not Instagrammable. It's not loud or sparkly. But it's deep. And it stays with you in a way loud moments sometimes don't.
Yeah. It teaches you that you don't need a perfect life to feel whole. You don't need a packed calendar or constant entertainment. You just need to feel safe enough to breathe, to rest, to exist without pressure.
And maybe that's the real definition of joy, being at ease in your own life. Even if it's quiet. Even if it doesn't look impressive from the outside. It feels like home on the inside.
You know what's funny? I used to think I had to chase happiness, like it was this big destination I hadn't reached yet. But lately, I've realized, it's more about noticing what's already here.
Yeah, like catching those tiny moments that used to pass you by. The warmth of your blanket on a rainy morning. The smell of toast. The way sunlight lands on your kitchen floor.
Exactly. Those little things that feel ordinary, but when you pay attention, they are actually everything. They are not filler. They are the main event.
It's such a mindset shift, isn't it? From what do I need to get to be happy, to what am I already holding that brings me peace?
And it changes how you move through the world. You stop rushing so much. You breathe slower. You say no to things that overwhelm you. You let yourself enjoy your own company.
There's something powerful in not needing your life to be loud to feel meaningful. Like, maybe success isn't about being seen. Maybe it's about how deeply you feel your own life.
I think so. And when you stop measuring happiness by external noise, you start noticing how rich the quiet really is. That's where you grow. That's where you begin to feel steady again.
We're all so used to equating movement with progress. But sometimes the most important growth happens in stillness. When nothing dramatic is happening, but you're healing.
It's like happiness doesn't always come from doing more. Sometimes it comes from doing less and letting yourself be. No pressure to impress. No pressure to achieve.
Just being soft with yourself. Trusting that this quiet version of happiness is valid. That it's enough. Even if no one claps for it. Even if it doesn't trend.
Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't to have a perfect life, it's to feel at peace inside the life you already have. And that peace? It's often whisper quiet.
And maybe that's why it's so easy to miss. Because we're constantly taught to chase something louder, something more exciting, more dramatic, more visible.
Yeah, and when happiness doesn't come wrapped in fireworks, we second guess it. We think, is this it? But maybe the question should be, why do I think it needs to be more than this?
It's a hard unlearning. To stop measuring joy by how busy we are, or how productive, or how much we're achieving. Sometimes happiness is just not being anxious all the time.
Or waking up and not dreading the day. Just that. Not feeling like you have to prove your worth today. That's peace. That's joy, in its simplest form.
And the beautiful thing is, once you stop chasing the noise, you start building a relationship with quiet contentment. You begin to protect it.
You realize how fragile it is, how sacred it is. And you start saying no to things, not because you're selfish, but because you're finally learning to choose your peace.
Exactly. And you stop apologizing for not always being on, for not always being available, or entertaining, or productive. You stop explaining your softness.
You start living slower. And in that slowness, you notice how the small things actually hold you together. The tea before bed, the quiet after a long day, the way your thoughts soften when no one's rushing you.
That's what makes me feel safe. Not the noise. Not the applause. Just those moments when I feel like I can breathe, fully, without bracing for impact.
That's real, honest happiness. And I think the more we talk about it, the more we give people permission to embrace it too.
It's funny how we keep waiting for this grand transformation, as if happiness has to arrive with a big announcement. But most of the time, it slips in quietly, like a breeze through an open window.
Yeah. You almost don't notice it at first. Until one day, you realize you're not as restless as you used to be. You're not as hard on yourself. You've softened.
And it's not because everything suddenly got easier. It's just, your relationship with life shifted. You stopped demanding perfection. You started noticing presence.
And maybe that's what makes this kind of happiness feel so honest. It's not performative. It's not chasing a highlight reel. It's just being able to sit in your own skin and feel okay.
It makes you realize how much peace we've traded away for productivity. How many quiet joys we've ignored because we were too busy chasing the next thing.
We don't celebrate enough when someone says, "I had a simple day and it felt good." There's something beautiful in that. Something powerful about a life that doesn't need constant upgrades.
It's radical, in a world that thrives on more, to say, "I have enough." And even more radical to mean it.
And not in a way that's giving up, but in a way that's grounded. Like, you're no longer waiting for happiness to come from somewhere else. You've found pieces of it here.
In your room, in your routine, in the cup of tea you make the same way every morning. In the fact that you don't feel lost in your own life today.
It's almost like we come full circle. We start out needing nothing to feel happy as children. Then we grow up and complicate it. And eventually, if we're lucky, we find our way back to simplicity.
And maybe that's the quiet revolution we need, to stop shouting for joy and start noticing where it already lives, softly, silently, around us.
And once you start recognizing that quiet joy, you also start to protect it. You stop letting the world convince you that your peace is boring or unimportant.
Yes. You begin to honor it. You start choosing your energy more carefully. You don't go to every event. You don't engage in every argument. You just preserve yourself.
And it doesn't mean you're hiding. It means you're choosing. Choosing not to spend yourself so thin just to keep up with a life that was never designed for your well-being.
That's something I'm still learning, honestly. The difference between being available and being at peace. Because peace is quiet, and quiet doesn't always get praised.
But it should. I think there's something deeply admirable about someone who can sit with themselves, who doesn't need to constantly perform to feel valid.
It's a quiet kind of strength. The kind that doesn't ask to be noticed, but you feel it when you're near it. It calms you down. It reminds you to exhale.
And when you've tasted that kind of calm, even just once, you start noticing how loud everything else is. How much of life is just noise we've accepted as normal.
And then you get to decide. Do I want to go back to that noise? Or do I want to build something softer? Something slower? Something mine?
I think that's what people are really craving. Not more excitement. Not more followers. Just a life that feels like it belongs to them. One where they don't feel like they're always catching up.
Where mornings don't start with panic. Where evenings end with peace. Where happiness doesn't have to be proven, it's just quietly felt.
Exactly. A kind of happiness that doesn't need to be posted. Just experienced. Fully, gently, with no pressure to make it bigger than it is.
And that's the kind of happiness I want to protect. The kind that helps me sleep well. The kind that makes silence feel safe, not empty.
You know what's interesting? The more I lean into this quiet version of happiness, the less I feel like I'm missing out. FOMO kind of fades when you're grounded in what actually makes you feel well.
That's so true. It's not that life outside gets any less chaotic. It's just, it stops having so much power over you. You're not chasing anymore. You're choosing.
Choosing what to care about. Choosing what to carry. Choosing not to apologize when your life doesn't look like everyone else's highlight reel.
Because most of the time, those reels don't show the whole picture anyway. They don't show the overthinking, the exhaustion, the moments when even joy feels like pressure.
Exactly. Real peace is quiet. It doesn't try to impress. It just shows up in the way your shoulders drop when you're alone and finally feel safe in your own space.
And I think more of us are slowly waking up to that. We're starting to realize that happiness doesn't have to be dramatic or intense. It can be gentle. It can be still.
That's the shift, isn't it? From chasing something extraordinary to recognizing the beauty in the ordinary. Like a day with no crisis. A walk with no destination. A conversation that doesn't drain you.
Or even just a moment of stillness where your heart doesn't feel like it's racing to catch up with your thoughts. That's a kind of happiness we should speak about more.
And trust more. Because it's sustainable. It doesn't burn out like a high. It settles in, slowly, and teaches you how to breathe softer.
I love that. Breathe softer. It feels like a kind of exhale we forget we're allowed to have.
Yeah. Not everything has to be earned through exhaustion. Some peace just arrives when we stop running and let the moment be enough.
And maybe the reason it's so unfamiliar at first is because we've been trained to associate value with noise. With motion. With being constantly seen.
Right. We think if something's not shared, it's not real. If it's not loud, it's not worth noticing. But the older I get, the more I realize some of the most meaningful moments are the ones no one else ever sees.
Like making your morning tea, just the way you like it. Or listening to the rain, without needing to do anything else. Those little things that feel like home, even if no one claps for them.
That's the thing. No applause, no spotlight, just peace. I think we start to heal when we stop performing. When we remember we're allowed to exist quietly and still be fulfilled.
And healing doesn't have to look like a major transformation. Sometimes it's just realizing that you no longer feel anxious in your own silence. That you can sit still without guilt.
That's powerful. When the silence stops feeling like a void and starts feeling like a friend. Like, you don't need to fill it with scrolling, or fixing, or doing. You just let it hold you.
And in that holding, you find parts of yourself again. The parts that were drowned out by everything you thought you had to be. The parts that whisper, not shout.
That whisper is your real voice, I think. The one that doesn't try to impress, just tells the truth. Softly. Honestly. Kindly.
We don't need more volume. We need more of that. More softness. More space. More permission to not always be on.
And more people around us who understand that kind of quiet is not weakness, but wisdom. That choosing rest is not a failure, it's a form of trust.
Trusting that we don't have to hustle for worth. That we can still matter, still belong, even when we're not proving anything.
Especially then. Because that's when we're really connected to who we are, not the version we're trying to sell, but the one we've quietly grown into.
So if today feels slow, or quiet, or uneventful, maybe that's not something to fix. Maybe that's a kind of peace showing up, asking you to notice it.
And maybe happiness, the kind that lasts, doesn't arrive with fireworks. Maybe it just sits beside you in the stillness and says, "You're okay, even now."
Thanks for sharing this space with us. We hope this conversation gave you permission to breathe a little easier and to let the quieter moments count.
We'll be back soon with more honest chats like this. But until then, take care of yourself, in the loud and in the quiet.
And remember, happiness isn't something you have to chase. Sometimes it's just being here. Inhaling peace and exhaling pressure.
See you next time on the British Accent Podcast.